Now we have just 10 minutes for general discussion. Before using the question that you put on the chat box, I would like to ask you if someone of the participants want to jump in on the discussion and share their video and audio to maybe to formulate directly some question to the presenters. You can just put on the green button at the top right of your screen and ask permission to share video and audio. And then we will be able to ask directly questions to the speakers. So please, if you have any burning question, you can just jump in, and it would be very appreciated. We can have a discussion with some of you if you want. In the meanwhile, I will.
Well, Francesco, we can also come back to the two questions.
Yeah, of course, I was saying that. I was just preparing maybe one of the three of you a quick reply from your perspective on the policy support for agroecological practices. Please make a specific reference to permanent crops, if possible, because it's the topic of this session. And also, if you have some thoughts also on the eco schemes, on how the future eco schemes could support agroecological practices in permanent crops, some idea or thoughts, food for thoughts for further discussion. So we can start from following the order of the presentation, starting by Audrey, then George and Andrea. And so, please.
Yeah. So on the support for applied agroecological practices, I think that what we have tried to discuss with the local stakeholders is indeed which type of measures could be used, and we came with the conclusion that some agri-environmental measures could be used, for instance, for supporting the use of green manure or cover crops. And payment for environmental services could also be tools that could be used to support some specific practices already implemented by some wine growers. I don't know if George and Andrea, you want to also bring some more insight on this first question?
Yes, I could say, yeah, this is one of the things that are very interesting. I think they could be supported. The problem is how we can justify the support, because as in the case of in this case, what we asked for and what we were looking for in this case is a change towards something new, something, and this is what we were looking for. While if we go on supporting the already applied one, this is a maintenance measure, which is not very possible in that case, in our case, at least when we talk about tree crops.
Okay, thanks, George.
Well, I think that yes, I think that George is right when he said that we are in a sort of new phase, because if we look at the single agroecological, what we call agroecological practice, it seems not so different from some of the agri-environmental measures that try to support these changes in some farm. What is different in the agroecological approach is the whole farm approach, the attempt to use all the best knowledge that we have on the aspect between ecological ecosystem and farmland and agricultural farming system. So this is quite new, and for me, the support via knowledge promotion could be quite important, more than not to pay something to change the practice. And this is the sort of biggest, one of the big error, we can say, in the past programming period of the Common Agricultural Policy, where there is this measure like agri-environmental scheme, but there is a lack of initiative on farm advisory and so on. So I think that the operational group with this attempt to create the agricultural knowledge and innovation system is quite important the past programming period, but now I think that more effort has to be devoted to this specific measure for the future.
Okay, thanks, Andrea. Referring to this second question, I'm asking one of the three of you, or I don't know what you answer, if the eco schemes proposed in the new common agricultural policies are going the direction you are talking about now, because there is a list of practices that seems that we don't know yet how the eco schemes will work in practice, but you can select just a few practices. Maybe this is not real in line or coherent with agro-ecological approach, where you really need to find synergies amongst practices and combine practices with the knowledge and the advisory. Otherwise, it seems that the eco schemes could also be, let's say, a failure, whether we can just select one practices. And there are also some practices proposed by the Commission that are quite relevant for the permanent crops we are discussing here, but they are more or less the same that we are discussing, just as cover crops, green cover, and also enhanced above conditionality for olive trees and vineyards and so on. So these kind of standards. So if you have a final reflection on that before closing the session, that would be useful.
Well, Francesco, I have to repeat what I said before. For me, it is welcome, this kind of attempt to refer to agroecology also with the eco scheme, but if we find the possibility to use the first pillar support for an agroecological transition, is better than not to spend money just for income support, not specifically devoted to some sustainable objective, where sustainable is economic, social, and environment at the same level.
Okay. Thank you. I was wondering whether amongst the participants there is somebody that want to jump in with some questions or just reflections on what we have presented today. Otherwise, we have the chance for people that join this session later, maybe to listen again to the three presentations in half an hour, because we will repeat this session from 4 to 5. So this is just to inform you in case we wanted to participate in the discussion later on, or for some of you who just joined this session to listen to the three presentations. We had the chance to do that in half an hour.
I think they have to go to session 10.
Yeah, we have to go to session 10. Sorry, thank you, George, for that. It's the same title, change the number of sessions, but we will repeat the three presentations, and we will have another discussion on permanent crops in session 10 at 4 o'clock. So if there are not any additional question, we close this session, and thank you to everyone who attended it, and maybe see you in half an hour for the second slot.